Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Thursday. We've got a running back coaching search update. The basketball game's going on. We're going to give you guys live updates as it is unfolding. The Bucks are up 7 right now. And those of you that are tuned in, we're going to not make sure you don't miss anything. As always, we appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for everything you guys have been doing for this channel. Our gear drop is live. Repthescoop.com, repthescoop.com. It's going to be going for about another 7 days. Get your gear. There's a t-shirt added today. It was much requested. Someone just wanted a plain Buckeye Scoop t-shirt, Nike, very nice quality shirt, and it has been added to the drop. So go check that out if you guys saw it yesterday. And again, we appreciate you guys so very much for patronizing that. We had a massive first day on the drop, so that was awesome. All the proceeds are going to pay it forward. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like. Click that little thumbs up. Click subscribe. Also click that little alert bell. If you guys have questions, you get the super chats fired up. Big update on the running back situation. We're thinking down to about 3 or 4 candidates right now, with 2 that seem to be far and away the leaders. Ryan Day obviously is in the middle of spring break, but I'm sure he is working the phones, trying to get interviews set up to get this done before they return to practice on Tuesday. With that being said, Nevada, the running back thing, I'm just going to say it. I think whoever we hire, based on the candidates that have been brought up as an upgrade from Tony Alford, again, we've talked about Tony Alford ad nauseum. We did it yesterday. I think ethically what he did was very poor. I think that obviously, there's a lot of bad blood between him and Ryan. I think that that's toxic for the staff room. I think that him moving on was definitely best for Ohio State. It probably won't be as good for him. Obviously, he's going to chase some fast money. But that being said, I think that whoever walks into this running back room has a real chance to catapult their career, given that he's going to be coaching a very hungry and a very angry Trey Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, the 2 top running backs in the entire country, in the same room, along with Chip Kelly's offense and Brian Hartline's wide receivers. Who are some of the names that you're hearing Ryan Day is interested in? Again, we speak at a different level than every other beat writer that covers Ohio State. We speak mostly to people that are outside the Woody Hayes. We speak to a lot of people in the Woody Hayes. But when it comes to the coaching search stuff, the reason why we nail a lot of this is because we talk to the people that are actually involved in the process. So what have you been hearing, Nevada, with your contacts? Again, I know your contacts, they're very, very high level. What are you hearing right now?
Well, a couple things. One, the 2 names that I'm hearing the most from the agents, and the agents generally know because they're either repping for their clients or trying to find out if opportunities are there for someone in the future for a job that person might be leaving from. So the agents generally have a pretty good feeling on this. And the 2 names that I keep hearing are Robert Gillespie, who's the current running back coach at Alabama, and the second one would be Dylan McCullough, who's the current running back coach at Notre Dame. And I think they both bring different things. They both feature different attributes. Obviously, McCullough, Ryan Day's very familiar with. Having recruited his son, and his sons ended up going with him to Indiana, and then he left for Notre Dame. And so the McCullough family's got a relationship that goes back a while. With Gillespie, what you've got those deep Southern ties. You've got a guy that's coached at South Carolina and Tennessee and North Carolina and Alabama, and he's a guy that has got connections down south. He's been an excellent recruiter, a guy that would be a really good positive gift for Ohio State. And as you said, the Tony Alford thing, we don't want to beat this to death, but I have to. Before I stop beating this to death, I have to say, watching some of the media people twist themselves into knots today, talking about Tony Alford, trying to compliment Tony Alford and trying to explain away what Tony Alford did, was absolute comedy gold. It was kind of disgusting, but it was kind of comedy gold too. Because as we said last night on the show, Tony Alford was the biggest leaker on the entire beat. He was the guy that was the source for probably like 90% of the information that was going out to the beat. And so these guys, for them to have lost their primary source and have gone out there and trying to cover for Tony now, trying to explain why what he did was ethical, why what he did was moral, why everybody else would have done exactly the same thing. I'm like, no, not everybody else wouldn't have done the same thing. Everybody else wouldn't have left in spring football and gone to their biggest rival. I mean, you could go anywhere else, but they're trying to hang their hat on this. He had a 3-year deal and he only had a 1-year deal in Ohio State. This guy has coached continuously for 30 years. For 30 years, he's coached continuously, never not had a job. So the idea that somehow in 2025 that he was going to be, jobless, and that the job market for guys with 9 years experience at Ohio State would have dried up is just preposterous. So, it was never about the 3-year deal. It was never about, oh, he's bettering his family. And it was a giant fu to Ohio State. It was a giant fu to Ryan Day, and that's all it was. But I just had to call that out because I knew that would happen today. But when I read it, I laughed so hard when I read it, because every time I read that, I'm just like, wow, man, you are just really trying to suck up to this guy. Just like, how do you defend the indefensible? And yet people were doing it all day, and it was pretty funny. But yeah, I agree. I think McCullough or Gillespie is a clear upgrade. Do I think Pepe Pearson or Scott Graham are still dark horse candidates? Absolutely, I do. But I think Gillespie's the guy that they're focused on. I think Gillespie's the guy that they want. And the way Ryan Day's offseason's been going, if that's the guy that he want, I wouldn't bet against him getting him. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, and I think that the situation, if you're Robert Gillespie and you eventually want to be a head coach, coming to work for Chip Kelly and Ryan Day and Coach Trey Henderson, I mean, you're going to, as much as there's some past reverence for what Alabama used to be under Nick Saban and what their running back room used to look like, it's not even close to as good as Ohio State's running back room now. And we got him, Carls Barkley, who's a great poster on BuckeyeScoop.com. This is kind of the quality content that you see on BuckeyeScoop.com. Let me get my input but he did a little analyzation of our recruiting classes under Tony Alford. Obviously, 15, he got here late. That was when Stan Drayton took off, went to the NFL the day after signing day, so it doesn't really count. But you look at 16, obviously 15 was Mike Weber. 16, and these are just facts. The 57th player overall not drafted, 214th player transferred out. 2017, the 43rd player, the lone draft pick in 9 seasons as his in his career as a running backs coach. That was J.K. Dobbins, obviously. 18, 63rd player transferred out, 81st player removed from the program, 139th player not drafted. 145th player moved to linebacker, obviously Steele. Unranked player medically retired. 2020 unranked player projected not to be drafted. That's Mayan Williams. 2021 11th player still in college, obviously Trey Henderson. 101st player transferred. 2022 222nd still in college. 2023 was not able to recruit a single running back to his position group. And then 2024, obviously James Peoples and Sam Williams-Dixon. So again, for the prestige of Ohio State and the scope of the offense that we run, the fact that he had one guy get drafted in 9 years, he recruited, obviously had Ezekiel get drafted after the 15 season, but that's shocking. And again, this is why if you guys are major Ohio State supporters and gurus and stat nerds, and you want to be amongst your ilk and the smartest Ohio State community on the internet, join BuckeyeScoop.com, because this is the kind of stuff people comb over data. We talk about stuff. We have great dissertations. We have great, very friendly, not arguments, but we can debate. It's very healthy. It's very clean. It's a friendly environment. Again, we moderate. All of the idiots get shipped off to one of the other trash sites, and we keep it clean on our site. So, I mean, you guys want to come in here, if you guys are worried about being on a message board and it being a burn board or a big mountain of trash like a lot of the other boards are, and you ain't gonna find that here, because this our place isn't for everybody. And we tell people that, like, look, if you're a bad person, if you're here to harass, then you can go to the other places and do that. You're not gonna do that on our site. But this is the kind of great content that's generated even by our members. Like, I mean, we already create the best content on the Buckeye Sphere, but this is the stuff that our members that are really, really sharp come up with. But Nevada, when you saw that, obviously we know that Tony's been a very subpar recruiter during his reign at Ohio State. But when you actually see that in front of you, are you startled at how bad it really was?
Yeah, it was a little jarring. It was a little jarring because I've always felt that he was just below average, and he did just enough to kind of keep himself there. Things are going, circling the drain, and he gets Trey Henderson, and circling the drain, and Quinshon Judkins, transfers in. But we're Ohio State. We're running back you. I mean, like, if you talk about what position more than any other position on the field does Ohio State, what represents Ohio State? If you had to pick one, and you're talking about, I know we've had great defensive backs and great wide receivers and great offensive linemen and great defensive linemen. I mean, it'd be running backs. I mean, we are running back you. We are 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and he's. I mean, you think that you would get that quality of a running back just accidentally, just kind of running around. But the fact that we actually had a class where we didn't even land a running back, I mean, that I just don't have any words. But no, I think that anybody we get is going to do better. I think it'll be immediately noticeable as we get immediately better in terms of recruiting. But yeah, it was jarring to read that. It kind of brought home. Sometimes you read things and they're not consistent with your feelings. Like you're thinking, wow, I really felt one way, but the facts kind of show me something differently. That brought it home in black and white that everything that I've been thinking has been exactly right. And then you throw on top of that the crazy rotations. Let's bench Trey Sermon for Master Teague. Let's bench Trey Henderson for Master Teague. Let's try to redshirt Dallin Hayden 9 times. I mean, when you put that on top of mediocre recruiting, it's like, man, we all know that he did us a favor. We all know that we're going to see the impact of that. And heaven forbid we can get a guy like Gillespie, then we'll really have scored. So, yeah, like I said, I'm excited to see what Ryan Day comes up with. He's been drawing aces this entire offseason. I don't expect him to stop doing that anytime soon. So I'm expecting a big hire.
Yeah, I totally agree. I got some super chats popping up. And again, appreciate your super chats. He's got to pay it forward. And again, you guys always bring the heat. Ben G, thanks for being Scoop Ultra. Thanks for the 5. Did Tony leak the best buffets to the No. Oh my God, would explain a lot. Gillespie recruited Alvin Kamara, Richard Young, Keeley, Jalen Hurd. Massive upgrade. Nevada OH. Well, Nevada, did Tony leak the best buffets to the beat? I don't know if they needed any help finding the buffets, but I don't know. I don't know. We'll explain a lot. But yeah, when you look at who he's with Kamara, Richard Young, Keeley, Jalen Hurd, that's monstrous. That's humongous. Your thoughts on Gillespie? Would he be your pick? If you're Ryan Day, you have infinite money for your running backs coach, is that the guy you want leading that room?
For me, that's given the fact that Eddie George is not in play, then Gillespie would be my pick. And whether or not he's going to get the I have no idea.
Yeah.
But that would be my pick. Absolutely would be my pick. He'd be the guy that I'd be going to. And I know that there's serious conversations. I know that they're putting an offer out there. It's just a question of whether or not they're going to get him, and whether or not Gillespie just got a raise, a position increase. Certainly, I think he got like an assistant head coach or associate head coach position. So could that be enough to keep him? I don't know. But I know Ohio State's going after him hard, and generally when Ryan Day has gone after somebody hard, he's been successful.
Yeah, like, why not jump on the ship again? Like, for 1 year can change your life in coaching. 1 year with the right system, with Trey Henderson, and I mean with Quinshawn. I mean, and Chip Kelly. I mean, I would like if I'm him. I'm just wanting to learn Chip Kelly's offense. Bad as anything in the world. Learn Ryan Day's throw game, Chip Kelly's run game. I don't know how you don't take it. I think it's insane. That's why I think Tony's making a big mistake. But, I mean, some people are just, they're not very smart. TG Buckeye 10, thank you for the deuce. Thoughts on the new 14-team playoff, Scoop to the moon? I think that the playoffs they're excellent for Ohio State. I think it creates better football overall for fans. Because, I mean, let's face it. If you don't make the 14 playoff now, does anybody care about the bowl game, the ancillary bowl game, like the Cotton Bowl, or, I mean, it sucks to say, but let's be real. Like, now that Ohio State is basically going to be in the playoffs every single year, it's going to be absolutely amazing for Ohio State fans, because again, the season is going to be, it's always going to be fun, but we're not going to have these years anymore where we just miss out on making the dance as the 5 or the 6 seed. And I swear that's happened to us like 4 or 5 times in the last, 12 years or so, where, we've been that first team out. Obviously, 12 we weren't eligible for it, but I just think that to have the years where we've had the best team, like 15, 19 we were close. Obviously, we lost to Clemson. 21 we were the Georgia game, but we've had some really good teams that if they get hot in the playoffs, who knows? They could run the table. They could play with anybody. So I'm really excited about the playoffs. I think it's going to be great for the fan base. I think it's going to be great for Ohio State fans, great for Buckeye Scoop. I'm all for it just because I love more meaningful football. And, the Cotton Bowl to me was a completely worthless game. Obviously, nice venue, Jerry World, playing Missouri, but it was a worthless game. Like, guys sat on it. With the playoffs, I can't see guys sitting out of the playoffs with a chance to win the national championship. You're just not going to see that. Maybe if a guy's ultra selfish, he might. But, in general format, I think that you're going to see Marvin Harrison suiting up to go win the national championship. And these guys, you're not going to see the 30 opt-outs. And, I think it'll dismantle a lot of the bowl games that look really good on paper that in actuality turn into just dumpster fires. Like the Georgia-Florida State game was a dumpster fire. People are in the transfer portal, 30 guys opted out on both sides. So it's when you see that matchup on paper, you're like, oh, that's big time matchup. But then you see it in actuality and it's trash because all the good players opted out. Brock Bowers is out. Florida State's good players are out. The quarterback's gone. So yeah, it kind of is what it was. But Nevada, your thoughts on a 14-team playoff? Muted. Still. Get him back in here. But I think it'll be really good for what we do just going forward because for the game, I think that you have to get rid of these opt-outs. I think the opt-outs are killing the game. And again, I want Ohio State to play more meaningful football. And the first time there's a home playoff game in the Horseshoe, it'll be one of the hottest tickets in history because I don't know how often it's going to happen, but I think it'll be really cool to have December football in the Horseshoe. Nevada, your thoughts on the 14-team playoff?
Well, I think the open question is what the impact is going to be on the regular season. And while I know we're excited about the playoffs and about the first home playoff game at Columbus, if that happens, but does that lessen the excitement of that Alabama home game earlier in the year? Because now, I think the way that the 14-team playoff is going to work is that the Big Ten and the SEC champion are going to get an automatic bye. And then the other 12 teams are going to be, the other 3 conference champions. I think there'll only be a couple of conference champions are going to get in there. And then they're going to be in a situation where, it's going to be other at-large teams going. But, will those regular season games become less meaningful? And I don't know if anybody knows the answer to that question yet. We're just going to have to wait and see. Because, I would submit that once you get past the first round of the playoff, that seeding is going to mean very little because you're going to be playing neutral site games anyway, and you've got to beat everybody on your road to the national championship. So there's going to be no layups once you get to that point. So, I think it's inevitable. This is kind of the way that it works. I can see those years when Ohio State had those great teams that just missed. I could also submit to you that probably in 2002, that team might not have survived a 14-team playoff. It might have not dodged enough bullets to be the national champion, but it's unknowable because we are. So no, it's definitely an exciting time to be an Ohio State fan because we're going to be in the tournament for the national championship every single year without exception. And that hasn't always been the case. So if you just boil it down to that issue more than any other issue, it's great. It's a great time to be an Ohio State fan. It's a great time to be a blue blood. And Ohio State is the bluest of bloods, that's for sure.
Yeah, like I said, I think it's great for recruiting. I think it's great for staff retention. Again, I don't know what the structure is going to be, but I imagine bonuses are going to go up. If you're coaching more football games, there's going to be some sort of a structure. If you go, you run the table, you make it to the conference championship or finals or whatever, the AFC championship, NFC championship, because eventually that's what it's going to kind of turn into. It's like the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be like the AFC and the NFC. So I think that the TV money is going to go up. I think the revenues are going to go up for the schools. I think it's going to be great for football. And I think that you're going to have less meaningless games. Like, again, these bowl games have become a farce for some programs because guys opt out like crazy, but I think it's going to be great. Oh, my man. Scholf Steel Workshop. Thank you for the deuce. I got it right here, my man. I got my special blade that was created to me by Scholf Steel Workshop. Look him up on Facebook if you guys want a really cool gift. This thing is really, really sharp, and I use it to scratch my back all the time. So it's very, very handy, and it keeps me rolling. But yeah, I scratched the crap out of my back, so it looks like I've been about murdered because this thing is literally razor sharp. So appreciate you, my man. This thing is beautiful. This handle is heavy. I mean, this thing is like a really heavyweight knife. But our guys at Scholf Steel Workshop, guys, look him up. Follow him on Facebook. He's trying to build his following so that he can stream and monetize his stream as he's pounding away at his knives. But it's really a cool process. I mean, there's a video posted of him making that knife. So check my dude out. He's the absolute GOAT. Nevada, how big of an impact, they start practice again on Tuesday. And how big of an impact do you think that there's going to be if you have to have Ryan Day or GA or Chip Kelly coaching the running backs?
Well, I mean, it's not optimal, but gun to my head, do I think it makes that big of a difference? No, I don't. I really don't think it makes that big of a difference. I think it's an opportunity for somebody to get out there and run around with the guys and do their thing. And it's not like you haven't, like you said, you've got Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, two of the greatest offensive minds, the greatest passing offensive mind in college football, and the greatest running offensive mind in college football. So, they'll certainly be able to do it, but it's not optimal from any stretch. It's not optimal from recruiting. It's not optimal from spring practice. It's not optimal from player development. It's not optimal in terms of keeping everybody on your roster and keep everybody happy. But it's kind of the cards that we've been dealt with, and I just have to make one more thing. I was laughing about this. There was a beat writer today that was talking about how he's talking to Tony Alford, and I wish him well in every game except for one this year. And it's like, what the heck are you talking about? I hope that he loses every game. I hope that nothing good happens to him. I hope that you're rooting for Tony Alford and Michigan every game but one this year. Like, what in the world are we talking about here? Like, I feel like I'm in bizarro world where we have these people sucking up to Michigan, sucking up to Tony Alford, and I don't know. I like I said, I think he's left us in a bind. I think Ryan Day is going to get us out of the bind. I think he'll make a good hire. He'll get a guy that's got in there, but disruptions are not great. Disruptions during spring ball are less than optimal. So we'll just have to deal with it. But it's not a great situation to be in.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm good on Tony Alford. I mean, once you switch sides like that in the way he did it, like, I'm good on him. Like, we don't even talk about him. He's obviously a scumbag. He obviously doesn't care about his players, and again, there's a segment of people that says, "Oh, you just got to do what's best for you," but it's like I don't always agree with that, because again, like if you go coach Trey Henderson and Quinshawn and I mean, those guys are both going to be gone after this year, and obviously, you got to look James Peoples and say, "Hey, sorry, kid, it's been real," but I totally disagree with what he did. And again, he could have gone anywhere. I mean, if you want to leave, go to the NFL, go to Notre Dame, go to wherever, like last year or December or January, but like don't do it to Michigan. And then put out a thing that says, Buckeye Nation, I love you. Like, how tone deaf and stupid can you be? But again, that's the difference, is what it is. Get the QR code up for our shop, repthescoop.com. We added a new t-shirt today, so if you guys want to check that out, it is sick. I'm going to order a couple of those, but I really, really like it. So repthescoop.com, the gear is very fresh. Very excited to see that. And we're going to have our meetup before the spring game. It'll be a Saturday morning, spring game day. Very, very excited about that. I think that'll be very, very excellent. I think that with spring practice, if Ryan has to do some fill-in work coaching the quarterbacks, I think Chip Kelly could coach the running backs. I mean, it's Chip Kelly's offense, and Chip Kelly knows the paths and the tracks of the running backs better than anybody because it's his offense. So he's got to coach the running backs on it. Like, this time of year, it's a lot about aiming points, a lot of technical stuff. And honestly, like it might be really beneficial for Chip to coach the running back so that they can get up to speed with some of the read option stuff, some of the orbit motion stuff, some of the stuff that he does. Because like if you put a gun to my head and said, Kirk, how would you organize practice going forward while they look for a running backs coach? I tell Chip to coach the running backs, and I tell Ryan Day to coach the quarterbacks, like he's been doing for since 2017, 7-8 years now. And I'd have Chip coach the running backs because he knows the paths. It's his offense. The running backs kind of drive the bus in his offense. So that's what I would do. And I think that makes the most sense. Obviously, you've got GAs, you've got fill-in staff. Another option would be Keenan Bailey could coach the running backs. I mean, he came up as a running backs guy under Tony Alford. When you're a GA and a young guy, you kind of go from O-line to receivers to tight ends. You kind of learn everything. So Keenan could probably fill in there, and maybe you could put Chip or put Ryan with the tight end. I mean, tight ends and running backs are the two easiest spots. So it's not like you lost your quarterback coach. It's definitely not like you lost your O-line coach. That'd be devastating. But again, I think that this is the benefit to having, like all these extra guys on staff that are in the staff room. Like a guy like Devin Jordan's been there for a couple years now. There's a lot of guys that are quality control coaches. If Todd Finch hadn't have left to LSU, you could just have elevated him just temporarily. It's kind of like when they fired Parker Fleming. Or when they fired Perry Eliano and they put James Laurinaitis on the road because you still had 10 accountable coaches. Like, now that you have an open spot on your staff, you can elevate an off-the-field coach to be that 10th guy, which would be like a Devin Jordan or one of the quality control coaches that's on the offensive side of the ball to help out. Because, again, I think that, like in coaching running backs, it's not that hard. But I think ideally you have Chip Kelly do it, in the perfect world, you do a lot of stuff together, quarterbacks, running backs, especially when you're doing a lot of what they call ball handling, which is where they work on the different meshes for the read option stuff. I think that having those two guys, having Ryan and Chip work together with the running backs and quarterbacks, it's good. I don't think there's going to be a lot of drop-offs because, like I said, coaching the running backs is just not that hard. And when you've already got, Ryan is kind of a walk-around CEO type guy now, he can kind of loiter over it a little bit because he knows enough about the running backs in this offense to be very dangerous and be very good and very competent of running backs coach. So, like I said, I don't think they're going to miss a beat. I don't think it's going to be like the running backs get out there and they go over to where they practice during the day and there's not going to be anybody paying attention. They're just going to be sitting on their helmets. So I think they're going to get some really good work in, especially as they're learning Chip Kelly's offense. So, but I'm really excited to see what these guys can do. Going forward, Nevada, as we get into, the spring, what is there any benefit to Tony Alford leaving if we add a Gillespie or even Dylan McCullough? Like Dylan McCullough, for those of you that don't know, that's another guy that's really kind of in the mix. He's a guy that he's had a strange career. He was with Kansas City for a long time, USC, Indiana. Went to Notre Dame. He famously was at Indiana, and his kids, including his one star linebacker kid who was committed to us and flipped to Indiana, they all got there, and then he left and went to Notre Dame, which was idiotic. And then his two better sons, there were three of them, and two were much better than the third one, and one was really good. They transferred to Oklahoma, and the third one I think medically retired. But Dylan is now he's now at Notre Dame. He had a background at Miami of Ohio. That's where he played. Really, really good player in college. He's a guy that I think would be worth monitoring as well because we've had this kind of pathway of Notre Dame to Ohio State. Obviously, Notre Dame is a sinking ship. Marcus has lost a lot of coaches over the last 2 years since he's taken over as the head coach. And I think Dylan would sprint to take the running back job at Ohio State. So what are your thoughts on Dylan McCullough? Because, again, I like him. I've known him a lot longer just because I've got ties to the Miami Redskins back when they were the Redskins. Back when he was there, they were the Redskins. He's the guy that's got connections with Kevin Wilson. So if Ryan needs like a very good audit on what Dylan McCullough is, and he could talk to Kevin Wilson pretty freely, and I think Kevin would give him a big stamp of approval. But your thoughts on Dylan McCullough?
Well, a couple things. One, Ohio State Buckeye basketball up 5 at halftime. So if you're following the Buckeye basketball team, they're up, I think it's 43-38. So Nevadabuck is laid -2. Ohio State's feeling good so far at halftime, but we'll continue to give you updates as we're kind of going through there. McCullough, I mean, look, I like him a lot, and I think he's a comfortable choice, and I think he'd be a good choice. He doesn't excite me as much as Gillespie just because of the Southern contacts and the Southern recruiting experience that Gillespie has. But I think he'd be a good choice. I think he'd be a good, and I think he'd be a clear upgrade over Alford. So, I like him. I think he's got a solid resume. And I remember when he coached at USC in 2017, they said nice things about him. So I don't think that he would be a bad choice by any measure. But man, I think Gillespie is the A+ hire. I think he's the guy that's that could make the biggest impact, that could have the greatest role for Ohio State, especially being a guy that they want to have as a premier recruiter, because he's definitely a premier recruiter, and he's demonstrated over and over again. But the Notre Dame running backs were good. I like the Notre Dame running backs. McCullough gets some credit for that. But one thing you could help me with, and I'm sure you could help the viewers with, is explain what a running back coach does, and what exactly does he coach? And I'm being serious. I'm being dead serious. Tell me, give me an example of if we made Burt Carton running back coach for Ohio State. What are you doing? How do you spend your day? What are you doing with your players? What does a running back coach do?
I mean, it's I mean, you guys probably think I'm a hater or whatever when I say it is the easiest position. The only position that's easier than running backs is tight ends. And I'm talking on the entire team, offense and defense. You're coaching one guy, especially in modern football, because in the glory days of 2005 football, when I played, we had a thing called a fullback. So they used to have to coach two guys on the field. Now, fullbacks don't exist. Nobody takes fullbacks. They're not in any offenses anymore. So he coaches one guy. And it's a lot of work on ball handling, which again is the mesh with the quarterback, which, on any play that's a running play, unless it's a toss sweep or something, it's generally a handoff. So they work those a lot with the quarterbacks in pre-practice. It's a ton of footwork, ton of aiming point work, aim at the outside, butt cheek of the tackle on outside zone and read what the defensive end does. It's working reads, it's working edges. I think that the one thing that is critically important for running back coaches to be able to coach, other than obviously the mesh points and how to read a zone play or read a power play, is pass protection. Because if you can't pass protect in modern college football as a running back, you're not going to play. You're going to get your quarterback killed, and you're definitely not going to play the National Football League. So maybe if you're that dude and you're just a monster in college, you might be able to play. But, if you want to play at Ohio State, you better be physical in pass protection. And that's why like Ezekiel Elliott was magnificent in pass protection, because Ezekiel, for as weird as he is now, and his hair is long, and he's got the bull ring in his nose and all that, Ezekiel was an absolute monster at Ohio State. He's kind of at the end of the line. And I love Ezekiel. Ezekiel, if you put a gun to my head and said, Kirk, you got to build the all Barton team to start at Ohio State tomorrow, he's probably my tailback. And I love Eddie, and I love Archie, and I love every other guy. But Ezekiel's a different animal now. 4'4" guy, physical as the day is long, would cut the edge like nobody's business, just reckless with his body. And I loved that. He wasn't protecting himself. He didn't run out of bounds. He was an absolute animal. Great kid. Obviously, he had a little off the field stuff going on, but when he was a young kid, one of the nicest kids, great family, but just an absolute warrior. But he was so physical in pass protection. He was so good in pass protection that the Dallas Cowboys took him in the top 5 of the draft. And it's how incredible do you have to be as a running back in modern football to go in the top 5? Well, Ezekiel was everything. He was fast. He was breakaway speed, physical, big, strong, powerful. Um, but I think teaching technique in pass protection is really critical for running backs coach. And then obviously there's the random small route tree that these guys run in swing passes, darts, arrows, like little short routes that these guys usually run. But it's not a lot. I think you work on a lot of ball, like I said, a lot of ball handling, which it's either with the quarterback or without. You see the classic drill where they got the baseball bat with like the foam on the end and they beat the guys as they run through the dummies, and a lot of drills, a lot of that kind of stuff. But like I said, it's just not, if you recruit well and you can go get like Adrian Peterson, then like you don't have to be like the greatest technical coach in the world to coach Adrian Peterson. Say, hey, Adrian, we're gonna hand you the ball and you're gonna run for 225 yards and 3 touchdowns. Okay, okay, sounds great, perfect. And that's kind of what it is, because they don't block as much as tight ends. So the blocking with tight ends is much more difficult because you're generally getting a guy who's smaller blocking a guy who's bigger. Like G. Scott has to be able to block like Jack Sawyer or Chase Young. And Chase and Jack are 260, 265. And, G. Scott's probably 230, 30-pound edge to Jack. And you got to figure out a way to hold that guy, hold the line and be physical when you're generally outmanned. So, but yeah, that's why your running backs coach better be your best recruiter. And I keep saying it over and over again. And again, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, because when I'm right, I like to say stuff over and over again so I can drill it into you guys' heads, guys and gals. Because I know Doreen's in here, I know my wife's in here, and a lot of you girls are in here. Like, your running backs coach and your tight ends coach should be the best recruiters on your entire staff, because they have the easiest jobs on the entire staff. So they could devote more resources to recruiting. And again, maybe it's just me, but like I think if you have one of the easy spots, you should be a dominate. Like that's where you hire that young, energetic, and again, it's kind of a backhanded compliment when you call a coach an energy guy, because that generally doesn't mean that he's not exactly Copernicus when it comes to the X's and O's and game planning. But if he's an energy guy and he can go out and recruit like crazy, and he comes up with good ideas, and the kids love him, and he's kind of like that father figure for the team or whatever, or he's that whatever. Like, I think that's beneficial. Like when you've got a guy who's a sick young talent. Again, like if Zach Smith didn't have his issue, which is well documented, like I would have put Brian Hartline at tight ends coach. If Zach was still on staff, and then Zach was a monster recruiter, then Hartline was a monster recruiter. You'd had one. Zach, again, if you guys want to, people can hate on Zach Smith, but go look up how many national recruiting rating or national recruiting awards he got from, I don't know if it was Rivals or 247. He was like the national recruit of the year. Then he was like the runner up like the next year. So Zach was a great recruiter, and Hartline was. So it's like if you're Urban Meyer and you could go back in time and none of the stuff happens, and Zach's still doing great with the receivers, and Brian Hartline's kind of getting to that point where like, hey, I'd like to get a job somewhere. I mean, if you're Urban, you could sit there and say, well, I'm going to fire Ed Warner, the tight ends coach, and make Brian Hartline the tight ends coach, because that would have been a perfect spot for Brian. Obviously, he became the wide receivers coach that he is, and the rest is history. But if you had a young guy like Brian, who's a dynamic recruiter, really good with the kids, NFL pedigree, the whole shebang, like, if you want to give him like a kind of a starter kit, like a starter shot into coaching, put him at tight ends, because you can't screw that up that bad. That's why you don't see a lot of young offensive line coaches, because if you hire like a young guy and he's at Ohio State and he can't coach the offensive line well enough, then the whole team's a disaster, and that could cost the head coach his job. Again, like Greg Studwara, I thought was unfairly fired after the Michigan game in 2021. The Aiden Hutchinson played well. A lot of pressure. We go up there and lose. We give up like 8,000 yards on the ground. Because Kerry Combs' defense was atrocious. But, Stud, the offensive line didn't have a good day, and Stud got whacked for it. So, if the O-line has a bad day because you hire some young guy who's an energetic guy but can't coach, then it's bad. But you can hide that at tight ends. You can hide that at running backs. So that's just kind of my little lesson on the days. Like, if you've got some young coach who you don't want to lose, and he's really good and he's energetic and he can recruit like crazy, put him a tight ends coach. Like, that's just the easy move, because it's literally the easiest position to coach in all of football, and it's not even close. Your thoughts on that, Nevada? Because that was a little long.
No, look, I've always been told that was true, and intuitively, just we all kind of know when you look at it, you kind of go, well, wow, I really wonder what the running backs coach is responsible for. I wonder what the tight ends coach is responsible for. What can these guys do? Um, I mean, it makes sense. And I think, for Ryan Day, look, he has said during the offseason that he prized recruiting above all else, and he wanted to get relentless recruiters. And a lot of the reason why James Hornet's got that 10th spot was because he's going to be a recruiting monster, and Tim Walton and Brian Hartline. So now you got a chance to go out and get another recruiting monster. Well, he's sitting right there. His name's Robert Gillespie, and he is a monster, and he's proven in areas that you want to be. So Ryan, go do work and go get him, and let's get this done, and let's complete the best offseason in Ohio State history with another ace.
All right, District Fire, thank you for the 20. Appreciate you, my man. Thanks for being on here all the time. Joe Klett did a piece on Nick Saban retiring and his frustrations. Klett closed by saying the players should eventually have to sign a contract in conjunction with the money to keep them there and playing. Good idea, Nevada OH. Nevada, what do you think about that in wake of, Tony Alford having a contract and obviously not honoring it? Do you think it's fair that Joel Klatt believes the players should eventually sign a contract in conjunction with money to keep them in a spot and playing when coaches, there's in a more dishonest profession currently? It didn't always used to be like this than coaching. I mean, coaching, they're atrocious at this point. I mean, in terms of their ethics, the lying. But your thoughts on that, Nevada? Because I don't know how you can hold the players accountable to something that you don't hold the adults accountable to.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable. There needs to be some order in college football, and whether that be unionization, whether that be rules of employment, whether that be contracts, whether that be something. Right now it just feels like it's the wild, wild west, and whether this would be a step in the right direction or not, it'd be better than what we're in right now, because it is kind of a crazy time where there aren't any rules and everybody's just kind of going out and trying to figure it out. So I think it's probably inevitable that that's where we'll end up, that there'll be some sort of restrictions. And you know, I look at like the NFL. Like there's going to be contracts and people have obligations, and as an employer, you always have you always have the right to say no. If the guy comes in and says, "Hey, I want to take another job," you have the right to say no to him. Like Ryan Day had the right to say no. He had the right to say, "No, you're under contract. You can do it." The calculus that he made was how much is it worth to him to have a unhappy coach on his hand that's going to be a cancer in the coaching room, and he decided to cut him loose. So, these are decisions that employers make every single day all over the United States when you have employees, key employees, employees with confidential information, or whatever. Like it's going to be the same thing with players, coaches, everybody. There's going to have to be some rules. There's going to have to be some order. So I think it's going to be it's inevitable. And so I don't think what Joel's saying is crazy. I think it's absolutely the way it's got to end up.
Yeah, I agree. Again, repeat, Joe Klatt closed by saying the players should eventually have to sign a contract in conjunction with the money to keep them there and playing. Yeah, I mean, I think that, there's been disastrous NIL deals. Like Victor Cutler got a couple $100,000 and he sucked. I mean, he showed up here and was absolute garbage. And so, the Ohio State NIL crew was out a couple $100,000 because, Justin Fry and our recruiting guys, Mark Vantoni and those guys thought that guy could play. Somebody stamped that kid because the kid doesn't just show up and get a blank check and, hey, come on in, here's your jersey. And then they figure out that he's trash. And I remember I watched this film last year when we took that kid and I'm like, maybe I need to get LASIK or I need to get that lens surgery on my eyes because I don't see it. And again, and I'm not saying that you're going to get some guy out of the portal that looks like Jonathan Ogden, but I mean, I know what a good quality offensive lineman looks like, and that guy was terrible. And then he shows up and he's lazy. He gets beat out almost immediately by a freshman, by Carson Hinsman, and he just was kind of surfing. He graduate transfer to Louisville. I think Louisville surely probably paid him again because, again, the thing I've learned because I swim in the portal a lot. I hear everything that goes on in the portal in general. There's a certain cachet that comes with being an Ohio State kid and hitting the portal. Um, a lot of the rival programs and programs around the country, like, well, if I get an Ohio State kid, well, he's been trained by Mickey Marotti, so he's going to know how to work in the weight room. He's been through, the toughest offseason program, likely in the country, or one of the top, 4 or 5. Because it was interesting, like, again, I don't go down this road because people will just roll their eyes when I say that, Mickey's program's hard. But, like, the guys from Alabama showed up and said, his program is way harder than what we did at Alabama. And again, take from that what you wish. But, I mean, Mickey said that. Or not Mickey said that, excuse me. The players, that's Caleb Downs and Seth McLaughlin. We've got more than one guy who came from Alabama this year. And they said this is way harder than what we did at Bama. So, when a kid enters support from Ohio State, they know that he's been worked. He's going to be in good shape, because we've got good nutrition. We monitor these guys' body fat, and then they've been coached. They've been coached by Ryan Day and Jim Knowles and, Larry Johnson. So when guys hit the portal, they're desirable. And that's why a lot of these kids, they hit the portal and they get more NIL money going elsewhere than they would ever get at Ohio State, because there's some cachet and there's some I guess it's kind of like having like a Carfax. You get a car and buy a used car and it's got a Carfax report that says it's got a clean title. That's kind of what it's like when you get an Ohio State player. Like, that it's not going to be like a guy who's a total turd, because we don't take turds. I mean, if we take a turd on accident, we process them out. So if it's a guy who's been in the program for a couple of years, then he's generally someone that could probably contribute. So like you see like Chip Trainum's a perfect example. Like, he got a nice stack of money from Kentucky that he never would have gotten from Ohio State. I don't think he got a dime in Ohio State, but he goes to Kentucky and he's the bee's knees. He's probably going to be the feature back there. So, again, I think there needs to be contracts. I think NIL is going to get institutionalized, where it's all going to be inside of the university. I think that the collectives will go away. And it'll be interesting to see how the universities react to that, because, again, the universities and the collectives are fighting over the same money. So how's it going to work? You're going to like earmark money for the collectives that should go to building a new women's ice hockey arena. But it's also something that I don't really care about right now, because right now our NIL is killing it and I don't want anything to change. Shot Clock Todd, thank you for the 5. Just got in. What's the chance we get Gillespie at running backs coach? Nevada. I think it's a decent chance, barring, a miracle, like maybe, I don't know. But I mean, I feel like that's the guy that Ryan Day is really interested in. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the guy. It's their focus guy. It's the guy that they're going after. I, you know, look, Ryan virtually has unlimited money and unlimited ability to go out there and go out and find his guys. And so this is a circumstance where he's the focus guy. He's the guy that they're putting all the resources towards, and it's a great situation. So it would seem that everything's aligning, but sometimes personal things come into it. There may be something that we're not aware of, or some sort of commitment that's been made with him in Alabama. But everything that I've heard, let me put it this way: the agents think he's the choice. So, and I'm talking about high up guys. They think it's done. They think Gillespie's the guy. Now, are they right? More often than not, they are, but they're not perfect by any stretch of imagination, because nobody gave me a heads up on Tony Alford, snaking it to Michigan. So it's not like they know everything that's going on. But I can say in the agent community, the chalky consensus is that Robert Gillespie will be the next running back coach at Ohio State. We'll see if that's right. I know that they're going to give it the best effort, and he's going to have every opportunity to say yes. Let's put it that way.
I love that. Pure Beard bringing the greatest questions of all time, as usual. Thank you for being an ultra. Thanks for the deuce. Off topic, Nevada. Favorite WWF/WCW wrestlers and moments. Ooh, that is a good one. Nevada, I'll let you go first, because you'll probably steal all my guys.
Oh, man. Well, see, I grew up, I was a big NWO fan. So I liked all the NWOs. So I like Scott Hall, big Scott Hall fan. My favorite moment ever was the bash at the beach when Hulk came and was exposed as a third man and did the heel turn to Hollywood Hulk Hogan. I thought that was one of the great the great bits in all of wrestling history. Hogan was really concerned because he'd played, the good guy, the red and gold for so long. He was just not sure how that heel turn was going to go, and it was one of the great things for his career, kind of rejuvenated his career. But for me, the high point was the NWO, the Monday Night Wars. As I'm sure some of you guys are aware, I was really close with WCW, did a lot of business with them and with Eric Bischoff. And so I was team WCW all the way, and they were killing them for a while. For I think 83 weeks in a row, they had them killed. But eventually the money and power and the brilliance of Vince McMahon took over. But yeah, that was my favorite moment.
Yeah, I think it's easily Kevin Nash and Yokozuna. I loved Yokozuna when I was a little kid. He was great. Yeah, but the Bash at the Beach, that was probably the best moment in wrestling history because you've got a guy turn like that. And I liked Flair too. I mean, Flair at this point in his life is kind of old and sad just because of he's still kind of out being Ric Flair, but he was always just hilarious. I just love the theatrics of him. But I miss old wrestling. Like back in the day, wrestling was like must see TV. Like I couldn't miss a Monday Night Raw or Monday Night Nitro, and now it's just kind of barely watchable. It's just too generic and boring. I don't think the personality is great. So that's a great question, though. I mean, I love off-topic questions. So if you guys have those, toss those in the super chat. Yeah, it's 50.
Buckeyes up 9, 12 minutes to go in the second half, up 61-52. So doing their thing. Let's go, Buckeyes.
In the comments, I want to hear how into March Madness are you this year? Nevada, if the Buckeyes make or miss the tournament, does it change your, and again, I know it's like a miracle. They have to like run the table to make the tournament. Does it change your excitement if they do somehow slip into March Madness?
I mean, yeah. I mean, look, I'll watch Ohio State in anything. I'll watch Ohio State in the aforementioned women's hockey. I'll watch Ohio State in track and I'll watch Ohio State in anything and root for them. So it absolutely amps my interest up. But I'm not a fan of March Madness. I'm just not. I wish I was. I wish I was as excited as a lot of people are. I think the pools are great and the survivor pools are great, and there are some good games and some good finishes, and the TV part of it's exciting. But we've talked about this before, but I couldn't name 3 All-Americans. And in the old days, I could name the entire. I think the entire starting team for like NC State when they beat Georgetown when when Valvano was the coach. But like I can't name 4 players on the Ohio State basketball team now. So I don't know if that's a me thing. I don't know if that's a college basketball thing. I don't know. And I'd love to hear what other people have to say about that. Is there interest in college basketball going up, gone down, or is it somewhere in between? I'd love to hear that.
I don't think anybody could seriously say that it hasn't gone down just because of the one and done. It just kind of killed it. And plus, a lot of good players have options outside of college basketball. They can go play in the G League, they can go play in Europe for a year, get paid. So I don't know. I think it's a little bit different. Yeah, I'm trying to see what else is going on. Let me check the board real quick. Yeah, these guys get back to action on Tuesday, and it's going to be interesting because again, I think Ryan wants to take his time with this hire. I don't think he wants to rush into it, but I think if he can get Gillespie, it'd be great. But it's going to be it's really interesting. Nevada, some of the ancillary guys, Scotty Graham is interesting, but he hasn't been coaching very long. Like that's the kind of, like I said, Scotty had a really interesting kind of winding road to get into coaching, where he went from being an athletic director to being like a coach. And I think it might have been. He went from being an athletic director at Arizona State to being a coach at Arizona. And was a strange turn. And obviously he knew Jed Fish, which is how that could happen, because that normally doesn't happen. Now, obviously, he's at Washington. I'm sure he would walk, barefoot to get to Columbus to be the running backs coach. But I just don't know if he adds the depth of Gillespie. Because the thing I love about Gillespie, and you pointed this out, is he's from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, played for the Florida Gators. Like, that is, like, amazing for recruiting. To have a guy who's from Mississippi and played in Florida, you're going to have natural ties. You're going to know, like, you're going to have some of your boys are going to be high school coaches, principals. They're going to know the area. Like, his recruiting ties make him far and away the most intriguing option to me, even more than Dylan McCullough. But, like a guy like Scotty, he started so old. Most guys that get into coaching, they start when they're 24, 25. Scotty probably started, he was probably 50 when he started coaching. And that's kind of bizarre to me. What would your reaction be if it somehow was Scotty Graham, who I think is like kind of a distant third at this point?
Yeah, look, I'd be shocked. The reason we know Scotty Graham is because Scotty Graham played at Ohio State. That's why we know Scotty Graham, and that's why he's on the list. But the point that was made to me by one of the agents that I was talking to today was like, he thinks I'm way underestimating Chip Kelly's influence on this hire. He's like, Chip's in charge of the offense, and Chip just and Chip is also the running game guy. He goes, so don't think for a second that this isn't going to be a Chip Kelly hire. And I'm like, really, you think so? He goes, oh, I absolutely believe that. I think this is going to be a Chip Kelly guy. I think it's going to be somebody from his coaching tree, somebody from the West Coast, somebody that he knows, somebody he's in interactions with. And it's interesting because all the names that have kind of formed, none of that's come out yet. And so I'm digging to see who might be a Chip, but he thinks it's going to be a Chip Kelly hire, not a Ryan Day hire primarily. Um, and I think Gillespie's probably the chalky one because that's the guy that they can both agree on. I think that's an easy one. But I think once it gets past that, I don't think it's going to be one of these ex-Buckeyes or one of these guys that just kind of be okay. I think it would be, it'd be a coach, like you said, that maybe was coaching a different position, but that Chip Kelly liked a lot, or somebody that Chip Kelly really coveted from another team. But I think Chip's fingerprints are going to be all over this hire, and I think that's something to really look out for as we're evaluating candidates.
Yeah, I think that, because I'm just as prepared for that, for it to be someone that nobody thought of, nobody was like, oh, see, he was on the list. Because, like, with Chip, like, you don't know. I mean, obviously, people mentioned DeMarco Murray because he played, for the Eagles, but that was a disastrous year that he was with Chip. I don't think that they're on good terms, but he's the running backs coach at Oklahoma. He interviewed at Michigan, which is strange. It's always weird to me when a guy is at his alma mater and he's interviewing elsewhere. Especially like when you're at a place like Oklahoma. Like, I don't think that like going to Michigan is a lateral move. I think it's a downgrade almost. Or like
But
Mike Hart.
hold on,
Good.
yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let's talk about the Mike Hart thing. The Mike Hart thing is great because that is one of the all-time great troll jobs by Ryan Day right there. That I'm going to interview Mike Hart for the Ohio State running backs job after you took Tony Alford from the running backs position. I think it's absolutely prolific, and it just shows that Ryan Day has got a great sense of humor, and that and that the rivalry is real with him, and that he's going to do that because I think that's such a tweak on Michigan that he would do that. He would consider. I mean, that'd be like having Eddie George, you know, go out and interview for the Michigan running back job or something like that. I just think it's just a crazy trollific type of thing, and I love it. I think it's great. And when I saw that, I was just like, man, I can't get enough of this one.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I mean, Mike Hart's got to do something. He's a young coach. I mean, he didn't
Yeah, but
last
he's
long
not.
in the
Look,
NFL.
he's not going to get the job. There's no chance he gets the job. And
No.
Ryan's just tweaking Michigan with that. He's going to see if he can get some information out of Mike Hart. He's going to see if Mike Hart will say something that's provocative, say something that's interesting, and do it. But I like I said, when I saw that, and then I saw Ohio State's mouthpieces out there running with that, oh, they're going to interview Mike Hart, but I'm not sure if I expect to get the position. It's just like, I mean, it's such an obvious setup. But it was beautiful. I thought the Mike Hart stuff was absolutely was well played by Ryan immediately, and I can tell he's got a great sense of humor.
Oh, here's a great question, Nevada. D. Sunny, thanks for the 5. Appreciate you, my man. Nevada, can you tell us the story of a sports agent showing how powerful they are? Ooh, that is very good. Do you have a story like that, Nevada?
I mean, there's just like so many. I mean, look, agents get guys signed. They get, I mean, the ultimate thing is when they get other players signed by you because you want to even talk about the big time player that they have, and that happens all the time with sports agents where they'll flex up on you and they'll call you and they'll be like, hey, we got this guy. Once when I was running a minor league hockey team, they'd kind of been there like, look. We were trying to talk about sign this defenseman, Jean-Marc Richard, and they're like, unless you talk, you got to sign this guy Patrice Lefebvre to a contract. And I'm like, Patrice Lefebvre, I don't even know who Patrice Lefebvre is. And they're like, no, you got to sign Patrice Lefebvre just for the right to talk to us about Jean-Marc Richard. So I called my GM and I'm like, we're signing this Patrice Lefebvre guy. And they're like, he's like, who's Patrice Lefebvre? And I'm like, I don't know. Dude, look him up on the hockey IMDb, and we look him up, and he was like this little guy. He was like 5'3", but like one of the all-time leading scorers of the Quebec Major Junior League. And we're like, we signed the guy sight unseen. We didn't even know who he was, just so we'd have the right to talk about Jean-Marc Richard. And then, ironically enough, Patrice Lefebvre ends up leading the International Hockey League in scoring and becoming one of our iconic players, like probably the most iconic player that we ever had at the Las Vegas Thunder. But he was a guy that we signed just for the rights to talk to his buddy, and nobody even knew who he was. So that story's always kind of amused me, showing the power of agents and the influence those guys have on just so many different levels.
So the guy that you signed to have the right to talk to the other guy became your really good player.
No, it became the most iconic, but it became the face of the franchise.
So the guy from the Quebec Junior League who was 5'3" became one of your best players.
Yes, he'd be the best player, the all-time leading scorer in the history of the Thunder, and the guy that we're trying to get, Jean-Marc Richard, turned out to be great as well. But Patrice was just otherworldly good. I still stay in contact with him. Just a tremendous player, probably one of the all-time greatest players to have in the shootout. If you want to have a guy in the shootout, he had a move where he would go forehand, backhand, and go bar down underneath, and virtually unstoppable. But if you ever check Patrice Lefebvre, unbelievable hockey player, unknown, but we ended up with him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the agent thing is it's interesting because agents play a lot of games, and they'll get with general managers that they hate, and they'll steer guys to certain places and they'll threaten things, and I remember Priority Sports had Lyle Collins, who played for the Cowboys. He's a guy that I thought should have been a first round pick. He ends up catching it was like a connection to like a murder or something. It was something bizarre where he was later totally exonerated, and he fell all the way out of the draft. Like, this is a guy that was literally, you can look at him. I mean, he played for the Bengals last year, but Lyle was a guy that, I watched his film. I was like, he's probably a top 10, 15 pick. I mean, the Cleveland Browns should have taken him over Cam Irving. He ends up going to the Cowboys, undrafted free agent, got like third round money, got serious money, guaranteed contract, and started, and was a really good player. He was with the Bengals, blew his knee out, but the agents literally told the NFL, hey, or any team that listened, he said, like, if you guys take him, we're not showing up. We're gonna go back into the draft next year, and then basically they were hoping that nobody would call their bluff and that they could negotiate a fully guaranteed contract as a free agent, which you can do. Now it's rare, but guys like that don't fall out of the draft. The guys like that go in the top 20, 25 of the draft, and he fell all the way out. So, agents are slick, and the bigger they are, the bigger the names are they deal with, the more they're going to tax some of these guys. So, yeah, it's I've got to know a lot of them through my dealings, as a player, just in media, through obviously a lot of people at Ohio State, especially, and it's gotten even crazier with NIL because I'm the guy that can fix up a lot of NIL deals for a lot of these players. So it's who's the guy they call me. Then we get something done, and it is what it is. But I never take commission on the deals because I don't need to. But I just say, do you guys want this? I can connect you guys, and you guys can kind of have at it, and kind of away we go. So, well, got a nice little crew in here today, Nevada. Any other running back names? Again, we talked. I don't think Pepe is a real candidate. I just don't think that there's enough cachet when you coach it. Tennessee State, wherever he's at with Eddie, I don't think he's a real candidate. Do you agree with that on Pepe Pearson?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Pepe Pearson's. I mean, he'd be the ultimate dark horse candidate. But again, he's not from the Chip Kelly coaching tree. He's got no previous, interactions with him. But you got to remember, Chip Kelly had two guys from UCLA interview when he came over here, and they were interviewing for that 10th spot, and neither one of them got the job. But and neither one of them was predicted. It was a running backs guy per se. But as you said, anybody can coach running backs. I mean, Al Washington coached running backs for a year. So if Chip Kelly really wants a guy and they've got an open spot at the running back spot, and he's got a guy that's maybe a hot young guy, it's a hot young recruiter from with him from UCLA, somebody that you trust, could I see him make a move like that? That's not crazy talk to me. I could absolutely see something like that happening. And you know, I think that, like I said, I think the UCLA connection is something to keep an eye on with this because it rang so true to me when he was saying that because I'm like, man, Chip's going to want to have his say on this. He's not going to just want to have somebody wander into his offensive room that he didn't pick. I mean, he's in charge of the offense and he wants to be here for a long time. So why not have his guy? I think that makes all the sense in the world.
Well, and something with Robert Gillespie that you got to remember is like he was obviously with Saban, prolific recruiter, beat us on Richard Young, beat us on a lot of really, really good running backs at his time at Bama. He's one of two guys that was retained by Kalen DeBoer because generally they'll retain one or two guys and that's it. And he was retained, and then they're down at Bama. It's kind of mostly the Washington Huskies staff from last year with a couple of other guys mixed in, and within like 3 weeks of being there, the line coach and the offensive coordinator leave and go to the Seattle Seahawks. So, it's just so he's still sitting down there, and they promote Nick Sheridan and Jamarcus Shepard to be the co-OC. So he's still sitting there as a running backs coach. So he didn't get the nod as a running game coordinator. He didn't get a nod or associate head coach. He's just running backs coach. So if I'm sitting there and I know that team really well, and I've been here longer than anybody, and maybe I'm not loving what I'm seeing from Kalen DeBoer and his staff, I'm thinking Kalen DeBoer, you agreed both was a really good coach. We were both of the opinion that like if I had to hitch my wagon to him or Chip Kelly and Ryan Day, I'm leaving and going to Chip Kelly and Ryan Day like tonight. So that's why I think that there's a lot of it makes a lot of sense for him to do that because again I wouldn't say there's just no way. And again, there were two guys that were Kalen DeBoer's like right and left hand, his O line coach and his offensive coordinator, and they already bolted for the NFL to the Seahawks. So again, like I just like to read tea leaves sometimes, and they had a chance to give Robert Gillespie some sort of an additional responsibility other than coaching running backs, and they didn't. They gave it to Nick Sheridan and Jamarcus Shepard, the tight ends coach and the receivers coach. So, but again, that's just my opinion on that. So, well, Nevada, I think we can wrap this thing up with basketball going on. Final thoughts.
Well, I think this is going to happen quickly. I know Ryan Day, this is kind of vacation time, but everything that I'm hearing is that this is going to conclude quickly. That Ryan Day wants to get this thing done. He wants to limit the interruption for the staff, and also remember they've got a James Peoples issue right now, and James, is a guy that they want to keep. He's a guy that obviously was close with Alford, and would be a guy that I would definitely have on kind of portal watch right now. So they've got to get this coach in here. They've got to get him in there. And now, look, if Peoples leaves, will I be lining up on the ledge like all hope is lost and we're not? No, I won't. But do I want to keep him? Sure. I'd like to keep. I like him a lot. I watched his tape. You watched him play. I think he's a terrific running back. I think he can be a terrific addition to the room, especially with Trey and Quinshon leaving next year. So I think you got to get on that. And I think every day that it goes by that you don't have a coach, that those become bigger and bigger issues for you. So I think it's got to get done. I think it will get done. So as a fan, I keep an eye on this one because I think it's going to be done before you know it. Ohio State basketball up 8 with 6 minutes and 58 seconds to go. So maybe we'll get another day of Big Ten tournament basketball as well, which is also kind of fun.
Yeah, it's always fun when these guys make a little bit longer. So we're wrap this thing up. Well, If you guys like our Scoop hat, which is in our store, our girl Andy Jo Taylor is rocking it, and she's also going to be doing a couple performances, so we'll shout her out. St. Patrick's Day, if you got a place to be, she is going to be at the Harbor View Yacht Club singing, and she's a great singer. So that's up in Oregon, Ohio, so check that out. And then on St. Patrick's Day, she is also going to be singing at Kickstand, which is in Toledo. So if you guys are up in Northwest Ohio, go see our girl. She's been rocking our gear a lot. So we appreciate you, Andy, for all that you do. So go take care of her. And she's also going to be at our Scoop meetup on the day of the spring game. Her and her family, they're excellent. And they are repping the Scoop very, very well up in Northwest Ohio. So appreciate you guys as always. Again, we know that you guys are watching the basketball game. So appreciate you guys kind of dual wielding your screens and watching basketball and Buckeye Scoop tonight. Again, we still go at 7 every night. In spite of the basketball game, we'll go at 7 again tomorrow night. But with that being said, as always, we appreciate you guys. If you guys enjoy this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, also click that little alert bell. Those are huge for growing our channel. We're closing in on 30,000, so it's going to be awesome. Can't wait to see you guys. We will have our first official Buckeye Scoop meetup on it'll be April 13th, the day of the Ohio State spring game, 9 a.m. early to 11:30 a.m. Gonna have a blast. A lot of you guys are already RSVP'd. And we'll walk over the spring game about 11:30, check the game out for a little bit, see how the guys look, and then go our separate ways. But I'm really excited about that. We'll have some giveaways. The people at Buffalo Wild Wings are very excited to meet a lot of you. So I think it'll be an outstanding event. And so I need you guys to show up. It'll be really fun. Promise I'll make it a blast. And you'll probably make a lot of new friends. So appreciate you guys. Looking forward to seeing all you guys in your Scoop gear at that Buffalo Wild Wings. It'll be an absolute blast. So shout out where you guys are watching from. Shout out who you guys are watching with. In addition, let me know what your plans are this weekend. I'd love to see what you guys are up to. Obviously, the tournament is coming up. The conference tournaments, obviously, this weekend. The March Madness is next week, so it's going to be a really fun couple of weeks for sports. So as always, we appreciate you guys kicking it with us. I hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll be back again tomorrow at 7. To me, Thursday kind of kicks off the weekend, so I'm excited about it. So, but as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. Oh, we got one last super chat, so I'm going to knock this thing out. Alex Martin, thank you for the 10. Kirk, 2-part question. 1, how much is the spring game? I don't know. I think it's 10 or 15 bucks, maybe 20 bucks. 2, is it really 1,000 RSVPs to go to Buffalo Wild Wings and the game? I have no idea. I don't know how many people are there, but it'll be a blast. And Kirk, bro, you're simply the best guy we have in Buckeye land. I appreciate you, my man. I would love for 1,000 people to show up to Buffalo Wild Wings. I would love to just absolutely overwhelm the place and have a blast there. Honestly, if that happens, we probably won't even go to the game. We'll probably just watch it on TV and have some chicken wings and drink some beer. It'll be fantastic. So, but I'm excited to meet all you guys. I think it'll be a blast to put some names to faces. And again, I think you guys are going to have an absolute blast as well. So again, you'll show up, have a good time, support everyone, meet everyone. I think it's going to be absolutely incredible. So I'm very excited about that. So with that being said, as always, thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I'm going to see you guys again tomorrow at 7. You guys have a great night. Go Bucks.